description of the West Highland Way race. In part 1 I covered Mulgai to Drymen, and I'm going to move on now and look at from Drymen to Rowardennan. I'm going to break this into 2 sections, from Drymen to Balmaha, which is 6.87 miles, and then Balmaha to Rowardennan, which is 7.86. As I mentioned in the first part, these are based on a run that I did last year or this year, and the Highland Fling, and then the second part of the route will be a 2-day training run based on my Sunto watch, so it'll probably be slightly different to other watches. They're never 100% the same, but it'll give you an idea of how it's going. For the section from Drymen to Balmaha, I break that into 3 sections. So the first section is from Drymen to the path junction in the forest, which is 2.23 miles. Once you've gone through the checkpoint, you run along the road a little bit on quite a narrow little path, and then you come onto the road and just run for about a quarter of a mile, and then take a left, go through a gate, there's a big sign there, and then you head up into the forest. And that first bit is a bit of a climb. In fact, this section overall, you've got 335 feet of ascent and just 69 of descent, so it's mainly climbing on this little bit. But you climb up, you go through one gate, and then there's a path which is sort of single file really, and then at the top into the woods you turn left and it's a wider path, and then basically you're following that path for quite a while, then twisting and turning. Now it used to be that it was all in forest, but that opens up, which I'll mention in a moment. And then once you've gone for about a mile and a half or so, then you cross a road and you go through a wood, and then that's where the woods start, and there's a car park, and sometimes support teams wait there and to see their runners through. I know a couple of years what I've done there is maybe get someone to meet me, because it's starting to get light by then, and so you can get rid of your head torch, or maybe swap it from a bigger head torch to a smaller one just for the next half an hour of darkness. It depends where you are in the race. The quicker ones, they're still in dark for quite a bit further past there, and the slower ones will be in the light earlier, so it just depends where you are. But I know sometimes I've found it's quite good to get rid of my head torch there. Once you've gone through that car park, then you head down, still on a wide path really, big forestry path, and that's when it used to be in the trees, but then it opens up. Now all the trees have gone over the last 4 or 5 years, and you can see Loch Lomond now a lot earlier than you saw it before. And you come to a junction which is at 2.23 miles, and it used to be a lot more obvious, but now because the trees have gone, it's not quite so clear, but I know where it is. And basically there's a T-junction, you're going straight on, and there's a path to the left which goes back into Drymen, but you don't take that one, you carry on straight. And then from there, my next little mini section is from there to the bridge at the bottom of the hill, and that's 2.36 miles, 217 feet of ascent and 187 of descent, so a few up and a few down. And you carry on that wider path. Again, there's a bit of a drop and then a climb, and then you go through a little bit of a junction where there's a path which takes you down into the village, for what it's called now, but down to the left, but you take the right, go through a bigger gate, and it's still quite open and a wider path, and then after a while, about half a mile or so, you take a left and it goes into it just goes into a narrower single track. And then you follow that down, go through a big gate, and then up, and that's where the new path was built. It used to be basically a field that you went round, which wasn't quite so obvious, but now it's a very clear path and it's all bedded in now, so you can't get lost because it's a big path that you follow. A bit more of a climb, take a left, go past a big tree, and then you head down and down quite a rocky little bit, so just be careful on your footing there. Lots of stones and rocks and things. Go through another gate, and then you head right down quite steeply to the bottom of the hill where you meet the bridge, and say that's my next mini split. And then from that bridge you've then got a climb up Connick Hill to Balmaha, and it's 2.28 miles with an ascent of 551 feet and a descent of 935. So you climb up Connick Hill, Now hopefully you'll be fortunate enough to have a nice clear evening. I remember the very first time I did the race, I was told about, you know, when you go up Connor, the sun's rising and it's a great view and it's excellent, and I was really looking forward to it. But the visibility was almost zero that first year I did it. I couldn't see a thing, so that was a bit disappointing. But other years I've done it, it has been great. And the light's coming up and the sun's coming up and you've got great views of Loch Lomond, so it's a good climb. But that's quite a steady climb. I say it's about over 550 feet of climb, so you're making your way up to the top there. Often there's lots of people out supporting, taking photos. Sometimes a scouts group, they like to go up there as well and cheer people on as we go past. So it's the first time I think you start to really see spectators in a bigger way after Drymen particularly, so that's quite good. And then once you get to the top, you then got a steady climb, a steady descent all the way down into Balmaha. Now, just a word of caution here, it's very easy to let yourself go and decide, oh, this is a great opportunity to make up time and hammer it down. Just be careful. If your quads are not prepared and not conditioned for that, then it can you'll do it without much problem, but then later on in the race it will come back to bite you. So just be careful on that way down, but if you're confident and you want to hammer it, then that's good. But just make sure that your quads are in good condition to be able to do that. And if they're not, then I would suggest that you take that a little bit easier and save your quads for later on in the race. Once you've gone down the first bit, then it takes a bit of a left, and again quite rocky ground but on this new path. And then you go over a stream, and then there's a lot of steps then. So you've got some wooden steps and then you've got some stony steps as well. So it's quite a descent as you make your way down into Balmaha. Once you get at the bottom, almost to Balmaha, you then go through a kissing gate, and then you're into the forest then, and again some more steps and then a wider path, and then you make your way into Balmaha. I'm afraid the midges are often out by now, and so often when you come into Balmaha you see all the support teams with their midgie nets on, and it's quite an experience going into Balmaha car park at whatever time it is, sort of probably 2 or 3 hours into the race, and there's just loads of people about, and good chance to meet your support crew and get something to eat and get a bit of an encouragement before you set off for the loch side. So that's the first section of this, looking at Balmaha. So Balmaha to Drymen to Balmaha, it's 6.87 miles and 111 feet of climb and 1191 of descent. Then from Balmaha to Rowardennan, which is my next section, again I've broken that into 3 bits, and the first bit is 2.14 miles with 226 feet of climb and 217 of descent. Once you go through the car park, you go onto the main road, turn right. There's a little path just to the left of the main road behind a wall, so you follow that. When you get to the White House, you take a left and go up the main road to the right, and then you run down there for a few hundred yards, and then there's a signpost which leads you into the woods. Some stone steps there, make your way up, and then you reach the really nice viewpoint where you can see both sides of the loch, so that's a nice place there. Once you've gone through that, then there's a twisty sort of S-bend as you work your way down, and again single file, you get onto the bottom and then you run alongside the loch side, and keep going there till you get to Milleraki, where there's a bit of a car park and there's a toilet there and stuff. Not quite, we do try and get that open if we can on the race day, but there is a toilet there and a little information centre. And then once you've gone over the first bridge, you take an immediate left, it's still signposted, and that leads you onto the beach, and then you've got about a quarter of a mile, maybe half a mile on the beach, and great photo opportunity if you want to take some photos there to see the beach and the loch side. Just a word of advice, I personally like to go as high as I can. Sometimes people run lower nearer the loch, but I find the ground is a bit firmer higher up, so I always tend to go right and try and go as high as I can. There is one streamy bit where you've got to go down and up and over, and then you wake your way along. Then you're onto the road, and you run along the road for a little bit, and then there's a little path which takes you over the road to the right hand side, a little bit higher up. So make sure you go onto that path, because that road can be a bit dangerous with cars coming round. The path is off to the right, and you follow that path for about another sort of 3/4 mile or so, and then you come back onto the road where there's a bridge, and you cross over to the left hand side, and that's my little mini split there. That's that bridge, and it's 2.14 miles from the checkpoint of Balmaha. And then from there you go from the bridge to Sallochy, and that's 2.93 miles with 256 feet of climb and 266 feet of descent. Once you've gone over the road and onto the left hand side, you're now on the left hand side of the road, and it's a bit of a single track, probably just about there 2 people can run, but it's a good path, but just a single track mainly. Go over a bridge, road's quite close to you on the right hand side, then you climb up, and then you've got a bit of an undulating up and down and flat. Can be a bit muddy, that path, if it's been wet, but again they've improved it over the last year or two. And then you get a beautiful view of Ben Lomond at that point. I always liked seeing that. A good photo opportunity again if you're taking photos. Great view of Ben Lomond. And then you make your way down and round and up and down over some wooden slats and things, and then you make your way into Sallochy. Once you've done that bit, you're just checking where I'm at. Once you come down, you then actually cross the road first, so you go over the road, and then the path's on the right hand side there, and you run right along the road on the right hand side with a hedge in between. And then once you get to the end there, take a right over a bridge, a bit rocky, back over the road onto the other side, and then you've got a section which you run alongside the road on the left hand side, and you're right next to the lock there, and that's quite flat, but again single file pretty well. At the end of that, back onto the road, over a bridge, and then a bit of a climb up, and then you take a left into the woods again, and then a bit of flat, bit of down, bit of up, and then you eventually come into Sallochy. From Sallochy, I've got the final split from Sallochy to Rowardennan is 2.79 miles, and that's 354 feet of climb and 344 feet of descent. Once you go over the little bridge at Sallochy, you take a left, and again a wider path, and then after about maybe 1/4 mile, 1/2 mile, there's a little post which directs you right, and then you've got quite a climb then up some big steps that have all been put into the route, so it's quite a bit of a climb up to the top there. Once you get to the top, it's a bit of flat, a bit of down, and then another climb, and that's undulating. And basically you're staying in the woods the whole way now. Sometimes it's single track, sometimes it's a bit wider, bits of ups, bits of downs, a few bridges to go over, and you're making your way, but you're pretty well in the forest for the whole way of that. And then at the end there's a final descent, and then you come to the road, and then you run alongside the road on the path into Rowardennan itself, and the checkpoint is right in the car park. There'll be people there directing you and showing you where to go. And that section from Balmaha to Rowardennan is 7.86 miles, total climb of 836 feet and a total descent of 827. And the total distance to that point now is 26.85 miles. So you're about just over 1/4 of the way, or you're over 1/4 of the way into the race by then. So the next podcast and the next video, I'll look at the next section, which will go from Rowardennan to Benglass Farm.